have about 20 minutes or so to have a conversation with Evie. Evie, you've got 3 A-level subjects, you were saying.
Yeah, I'm doing maths, Irish and RE at the minute.
Yeah. So obviously RE was a subject that you enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
But you become involved during lockdown in a whole series of things in the diocese here.
Yeah.
Can you just talk me through where it came from, what opened the door for it, and how have you built on that so far?
Yeah, so initially when we went under our first lockdown last year, I think because of not being able to get out and interact and do our social hours, Lizzie came up with the idea of doing an online programme. So that's initially...
This is for the Pope John Paul II
for my
award.
Pope John Paul II award. So Lizzie came up with a programme so that we could do tasks every week, such as helping your neighbours or sending in quotations or writing a bit of a paragraph or an essay on how we're feeling or what the gospel you're reflecting on. And I think that was really important because I think throughout that time a lot of opportunities could have been missed in terms of us not building our social hours. So then Lizzie then also came up with the Alpha programme, which every Sunday we would meet, and obviously on Zoom, and we would watch videos and discuss reflections and our opinions on different things. And I think that was really important as well because it got the ball rolling in terms of conversations with young people.
And what sort of numbers were in that? I believe was it over 30?
There was over 30 in the first group, and I think it's really important as well because it gets young people up talking about their faith, which, as we were previously discussing, it's not something you would just come up and talk in somebody to the street about how you feeling about your faith. So I think it was really important that young people are opening up about their faith because I think sometimes we're seen as an age group that are disinterested. But I think over lockdown a lot of young people are reconnecting with their faith, especially young people. And then the scholarship started then, obviously, which is a programme where we're meeting every month on a basis where we're going to discuss things that we're going to do within the Diocese of Derry. And I think as well as that, it's important that young people are playing an active role because we're the upcoming generation which are going to have the impact and are going to be having the influence on what is happening in our diocese, and I think it's really important for us to have an opinion on that. So throughout the scholarship we're having meetings on Mary's Meals, which is a charity that's up and coming and helping children who are disadvantaged and are poor in different countries. And I think that it's really vital that we're shining a light on charities such as that because there is larger charities but they have larger platforms, but I think once we get the message out there and are spreading the word of their charity, I think they'll do really well with that.
Very good. So it's practical as well as discussing your own faith.
Yeah.
And I suppose the benefit of being online is that you can have people from Donegal and Derry and Tyrone, rather than bringing you all into one hall, you can all be together online.
Yep, I think as well, it's not just people from the city of Derry, it's really important that we're including different counties within that, and I think apart from the scholarship and the programmes that I've participated in, I wouldn't have known half the people that I've known now, and like in terms of social media now we're in contact constantly with our group chats and sorting out our individual tasks that we've been set. So I think lockdown, although it's been hard, it's brought us a lot of opportunities in terms of connecting with people with similar interests, as well as discussing the issues which we find really important within the church.
And clearly, had it not been for the lockdown, you wouldn't have been involved in so many things. You would have been doing your ordinary things and doing a wee bit in the parish and then moving on.
Yep, I think the social hours, you do them within the school or whatever you choose to do, but we would never have had that opportunity to do all them things online, and I think it's really important to show and note that the leaders within our diocese adapted amazingly to this situation, and they give us them opportunities and they set up them programmes, and without them paving the way for us to come into an important role within the diocese, I think without that it would have been a real shame.
Great. So remind me again, maybe the listeners who wouldn't be aware of it, what are the elements in the Pope John Paul II award?
So within the Pope John Paul Award, I've completed mine a few months ago now. You have your parish hours and you have your social hours. So within your parish, you'll participate by doing things such as reading, or doing reflections, or helping with bulletins, or writing up newsletters. For your social, that's open to whatever you really want to do. So you can volunteer at a football club, you can volunteer at an old people's home, but obviously due to the situation we weren't able to do all that. So for our social hours we got hours for things such as Zoom and having our reflections and things. But I think the Pope John Paul Award is really important because you think of the much social interaction that brings you, and it opens you to a whole new platform of things that necessarily you mightn't have thought about. So I think that's really important that young people are.
And I suppose your A-level RE course probably is of some help as well when it comes to talking about moral issues, ethics, matters of faith, the Gospels.
Yep, in terms of RE, I think the Gospel, it's lovely to reflect on that and learn about all the different Gospel writers, but I think ethics is where you get into the real nitty-gritty side of things, and I think that was helpful in terms of the discussions we had on the Alpha programme, because it was on issues that are controversial and that mightn't necessarily be spoken about with young people because they have different opinions, but I think it was really important that we shared our opinions and our views and you respected that, but it's really important to discuss them things and different people's opinions because we're not all necessarily going to agree on things, but it's important that we all respect everybody's opinions.
And you were saying there are large numbers in your school who were doing A-level RE. You said there's 4 classes of 10, 15, dozen of 15 in each of those classes?
Yep, I think as well that it mightn't necessarily be known that a lot of people do as an A-level subject such as RE, and I think it's really popular because it's not only that you're studying the Bible and the Gospel, but you are in a mixture of talking about them issues that aren't necessarily talked about, and I think it gives you them skills of communication and in terms of essay writing, it improves your oral communication skills. So I think RE as a subject is quite underrated in my opinion, but
and clearly very popular in the school.
It is very popular. It is really up and coming, I think, especially within the school I'm at. And
we do need young people who are articulate and able to ask the awkward questions and not be afraid of dealing with them.
I think that's really important as well. And RE teachers, especially the ones I've had, they've not been shying away from questions that students might ask and might question. And I think RE is a subject that you can question. That's what it's there for. It's not when you're sitting in a maths class, you can't argue with a teacher that that's not right because you're either right or wrong, whereas religion's open to interpretation in terms of the subject. So I think them conversations that we've been having in our subject class have been really beneficial and eye-opening in terms of understanding and listening to other people's views.
And you've loved learning so much that you would like to be a teacher yourself, you were telling me.
Yep, so I'm hoping to go into teaching. I have put down RE as a second choice just in case I'm swayed in some way, but I'd like to go on and teach maths and science. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that goes well.
Yeah, and that would be probably at least a 4-year degree at university.
Yep, and placement every year on top of that.
Yeah.
But I know you were a teacher yourself, and I was researching a few things on you, but I was just wondering what made you come to the decision to become a priest, because it's a very different setting in terms of a teacher's 9 to 5 every day, and you have your classes, whereas the priesthood's a lot of dedication and sacrifice involved in that.
Yeah, I suppose you ask people why they make decisions in life, and it can be hard to work out why does somebody marry somebody, or why does somebody choose to be a nurse or a teacher. You think about particular careers and callings, and you sense in your bones that this is the right thing for me. Now, I was teaching while I was a priest, so that I had chosen to go forward for ordination before that. But the way we had in Belfast, in the Diocese of Down and Connor, was you could go to stay in the seminary in Belfast, do a degree in Queen's University.
Yep.
So it took me 5 years for honours German Italian, 2 summers in Italy, a year in Germany, and so on. And then theology after that. So I was 27 before I had to make a decision about going for a priesthood.
Yep.
So it's one of those things that by 27 you ought to have some idea in your head what really is your direction of travel. So I was 27, but I had 5 years in Rome for studies and came back then in 1978. And then for the following 23 years I was teaching as well as helping out in parishes and doing other jobs in the diocese. and of the 23 years teaching, the last 6 were as principal of St Malachy's College in Belfast, and I enjoy a wee bit of study here and there. So I did an MBA in educational management while principal of the school there. So I enjoyed education. I had wonderful teachers and wonderful priests who taught me as well. They were good role models. My mother was a primary school teacher and worked us all hard. So I suppose when I was ordained a priest, I looked like a likely candidate to be sent into one of the diocesan colleges. So I had 5 years in one, and 4 in another, and 16 in another, whatever it was, 14. So I had all the years all mounted up.
So from when you've been teaching, it's obviously changed. So what do you think is the differences now from when you were teaching, the importance of religion played within schools to now? Do you think there's still that same importance there, or do you think it's slightly different?
I have a phrase I like using, Evie, and I use it very often in school, when talking to 17, 18-year-olds, saying it's always better to be unhappy with the right questions than happy with the wrong answers. And learning education really is about helping people to ask the awkward questions rather than assuming you have to have the answers. Yes, you'll have the right formula for your maths, or you'll know what the future perfect subjunctive is of some Irish verb. But in terms of the most important job you'll do, which is to be a human being, in terms of that, it's wrestling in order to be true to yourself and not being afraid, as you said, with A-level RE, not being afraid of asking the right questions, because you can learn and you can pass exams, but you really want young people to develop a love for learning, a curiosity, whether it's about science or maths or the Fibonacci numbers or any of those, all that sort of stuff. It's to help people, young minds, to believe learning is fascinating. I enjoy learning new things all the time. So I hope that I don't think I was a particularly good teacher, but I hope I was a reasonable educator in terms of encouraging people to love learning and not to be afraid to ask awkward questions, because you want people to go out of school with good memories and memories of people that they can trust and respect. And I hope I may have done that at least for a few, because inevitably over 23 years in school you do meet a lot of young people at an impressionable time in their age, and it's important to help them feel encouraged by what they do.
I have another question for you in terms of your priesthood, and I was just wondering, when you became a bishop and you were told that you were going to become a bishop, what was that feeling like? Because that is obviously a step up from a priest. Was that like a significant moment, and how did you feel at that time?
Well, I suppose I'd been asked to do different jobs over the years. I was teaching, and then I was teaching and running the seminary, and then I was running the school and so on. I did not expect to get a phone call one morning and being asked to come very quickly to Dublin. You think, I am in serious difficulties here. But I've always had that sort of approach. If God asks you to do something, you can't say in advance, I couldn't do that. You say, yes, in God's name, I'll give it a go. If I make a mess of it, I will have done my best. So I was asked to become auxiliary bishop. It's like the vice principal in the diocese of Down and Connor. There's the bishop, and then there's an auxiliary who's an assistant to the bishop, and I was one of 2 auxiliaries in Belfast. So I had 13 years of that. Seeing somebody else, having to take all the hard decisions, and then to crown my vocation, I was sent to the wonderful Diocese of Derry, and I'm very happy here. I've often joked about where they're going to bury me out there. I don't mind where it is. I'm happy to be here at this stage. So yes, I would love to have been married.
Really?
With a wife and children. I think I wouldn't have been a bad daddy. But that wasn't my vocation. I'm quite happy that I would love to have been married, but that's not what God's calling me to. So, and it's given me a freedom to do all sorts of wonderful things and to be available for all sorts of things. So, yes, for everything you pay a price.
I think that's an interesting perspective as well about God's plan. I think that necessarily at the time it mightn't be what you want or what you've asked for, but I think you're always given what's right for you at that specific time. So I think that's really important.
Yes,
you know?
God has a dream for what you can become, for the
Yeah.
person you can become. And it mightn't be by down the path that you would have wanted.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have volunteered to be part of a lockdown. None of
No.
us would. And yet it's been a blessing.
Yep. Yep, of course. But another thing I'd like to discuss with you is obviously that you've met Pope Francis. And what was that moment like? Were you apprehensive? Were you nervous? Did you speak Italian to him? What was that like, and how was he as a person?
Well, I suppose I was appointed by Pope John Paul II, so I would have met him
Yep.
in 2001. There was a course, not officially called this, but we tend to call it the course for baby bishops. It's about a week or a 10-day course in Rome, so he would meet all the new bishops at that now.
Yeah.
We met him, then he would have met Pope Benedict on a few occasions. And then not only did I meet Pope Francis on a few occasions, but every 3 years there's what they call a synod of bishops,
Yep.
which is a gathering of bishops from all over the world and other lay people as well with them. And the last time it was on young people, faith, and vocational discernment, discerning where God is calling you to and how we can support people to do that. So I was in Rome for 3.5 weeks. We were at the Vatican every day, and the Pope was there every day.
Oh my gosh.
So he made himself so available to shake hands in the morning and how you doing and where are you from, and so it was a wonderful experience of him being there to support us on our journeying.
Yeah.
He was a big brother who was there. And was so available rather than bowing down and kissing his ring. He just shook hands and said who you were and where you were from, and he would laugh and Ireland. So it was a real privilege to meet a humble man who doesn't have any pretenses. Because no matter what role you have, whether it's being a teacher, Evie, or whether it's being a parent, or whether it's being a teacher or a priest, you're a human being.
Yeah.
And if you forget you're a human being, if you forget that you have feelings and strengths like everybody else, if you forget that God loves everybody else as much as they love me, then that's a wonderful piece. I don't have to prove anything. I don't have to be a bishop or be a priest. I'm just Donal Mc Keown. I have nephews and nieces, I have sisters and brothers. I have lots of cousins who just say, "Donal, come here." And having a big family circle is good to keep your feet planted on the ground and not to get too highfalutin. In fact, the night before it was to be announced that I was going to be an auxiliary bishop in Down O'Connor, I went down to my mother, who was at home. "What are you doing here?" I said, "Mommy, we press statement tomorrow. Read that."
What was the reaction?
"Could you not get somebody else?" And over the weeks and months after that, she would say, "If anyone says to me, 'Rose, you must be very proud of your son,' I just say, 'He needs more prayers.'" So I have a good family circle that keeps my feet firmly planted on the ground. And that's wonderful. So I'm an uncle and I'm a great uncle and all of those things. And that sense of belonging is very important. That helps you to remember that you're a human being and that you come to God as the person that you are, rather than as an office bearer or wearing fancy gear.
Yep, I've one other subject that I want to touch on now, and as a young person within the diocese, I just want to ask, what do you think young people should be doing to get more involved within the diocese? What do you think our role should be? I think sometimes, as a young person, at times I've questioned what should I be doing? What is my place within the church? Because it's not necessarily a thing that not all young people go to Mass and not all people are in touch with their faith. So if there's anybody, especially young people out there, who are questioning their faith or even trying to get back into their faith and reconnect, what do you think should be done?
Well, I think we have, as you were saying, great opportunities to begin, for people to begin to nibble at the edge and see if they like this, if this is for them, if this satisfies where they are. But I'm working on the basis, Evie, that the church will not be renewed by old codgers like me. You are the ones who will evangelize your generation and build the church for the young adults that you are. And we talk about discernment the word. Discerning where God is calling His church to be. And it's by young people sitting together and hammering out things and arguing and disagreeing and praying and saying I'm sorry and building up friendships. It's in that context of belonging, I think, that believing will grow.
Yeah.
In many ways, we're so much invited to have our earphones on or whatever and to live in our own little world or just to talk to the people that we like, but building community. Even if people are not talking terribly religious terms initially, building community where people feel they can belong makes it easier for them to believe that they're loved and precious to God.
I think, and especially in this lockdown as well, that's quite relevant because a lot of people are probably feeling lost and lonely, and I think God's the one that's always there, no matter if you're going through difficult times or if you're going through turmoil within your life. I think God's always the one you can turn to, and I think that's really important that people know that.
And many other things that would have been important, concerts or parties or formal, all of that has been stripped away. And I imagine many young people are being asked to ask the big questions like, what is important?
Yeah.
What makes Evie valuable? What gives me strength to cope with the big questions of life?
Yeah.
And I think it's by stripping back so much of the candy floss that we actually can end up asking the big questions. And it's you who will renew the church. It's you as a young teacher, as a young student. It's you building up groups of friends. It's you going to World Youth Days over the next number of years with millions of other young people from around Europe. You'll get a confidence to believe in a God who believes in the world. That the future is not terribly bleak. That we shouldn't be without hope. We can walk forward trusting that God is there and that Jesus on the cross has defeated all the power of sin and death. So what God has before you, you don't even need to know, one step at a time, and walk forward with trust and confidence. And if you're praying, God will guide your heart. I think we're getting to the end of our time here this evening, Evie.
I think we must be. I think we must have each other's ears chatted off.
So, Evie, thank you so much for coming down. It's not everybody who's 18 would be prepared to come on to a live television conversation about your journey and about
We'll get
faith.
our TV deals tomorrow.
So, Evie, thank you so much for being here this evening, but thank you so much for your journeying over this past number of months. Thanks to Lizzie and all the others who've brought wonderful young people together, and I have great confidence that together you'll be able to discern God's way forward for the diocese. We don't need to know what that is just to walk with trust, because synod means walking together, and if we walk with Jesus in the midst, He will help us to find the way forward. Good night and God bless. Thank you.